Yeah, hi there. These comments are for Y, and I am Michael, the founder owner and the materials writer for all of your lessons at the 7-step system to pass the TOEFL IBT. And you completed independent writing practice test number 38. You did this on October 29th. You took 45 minutes and 15 seconds to complete this essay. I'm looking at it right now. Now, I read the essay and I have figured out your score. So let's take a look at the rubrics, and then I'll spend some time going over the essay in a little bit more detail. Okay, your essay fits pretty comfortably right here, 3.5 out of 5, or 22 points out of 30. So you have, I think part of it is, you have somewhat developed explanations. You have unity, progression, and coherence, although it's sometimes difficult to understand the connection of your ideas. You have some problems with sentence formation and word choice. Okay, so let's take a look at it. Probably one of the biggest issues here is when you get to your thesis, you say, well, affect society in general. That's probably a little bit too broad for your second key point in the thesis. And you'll notice when you get to that paragraph, you have that there is a difference between the poor and the rich people. You also talk about inflation. You talk about negative effects on poor people with economics, work, and also health. These are too many ideas. Really, you got about 4 main ideas here within this paragraph, and you're not using any examples for any of those specific ideas. You probably could have framed your whole paper just on this. I mean, you could have written 350 words and said, athletes should not be paid high salaries because those high salaries will affect the poor people in terms of economics and also in terms of their health, you might say. Actually, how about economic, work, and health problems to poor people? Then when you get to your second paragraph, you say, first of all, athletes should not be paid a lot of money because it affects economically. It negatively affects poor people economically. Or then when you get to the next paragraph, another effect on poor people because of these high salaries is their work problems that they will have. Or the final effect that athletes' high salaries have on poor people is their health. And then you give all of the examples and things to help support those particular ideas. So right now you have too many big ideas without enough details, so I would suggest on the final exam when you complete this assignment to limit your focus. Now let's also take a look at one of your topic sentences here. You say some old teams are breaking down because the inability of team to rival the economic support of team. But this topic sentence doesn't directly or explicitly connect back to the idea of athletes being paid high salaries. Even the paragraph, you have most of the sports teams have become related to a big company or government to do a business promotion. This results by giving the huge amount of salaries for their athletes while the other teams do not have support from big financial supporters, are breaking down the second level of champions. So the other thing is, each paragraph needs to be very clearly connected to why these athletes should not be paid higher salaries. So you may say something like this. And then say something like this. See, if you state this in the beginning, which you didn't do, and say athletes do not deserve the high salaries they get because some old teams are breaking down because of the inability of, you might say, these teams to rival the economic support of teams. You start off like that. Now it forces you in your paragraph to defend this assertion that they should not be paid these high salaries. Then probably your paragraph will have a more connected purpose to the writing task. So that is a suggestion. You could have done this also here. Say something like, these high salaries also affect society by making levels by creating, a little bit too wordy there, a big income gap between rich and poor people, You see, if we say this, then our purpose is a little more clear. You say these high salaries can also affect society by creating a big income gap between between poor and rich people, which is another reason why these athletes should not be paid large amounts of money. Okay, so now what we want to do is try to limit the focus of this paragraph a little bit more. Okay, let's say something like, so you say, in fact, this income gap hurts poor people economically because it causes inflation. So you say the average salary of NBA basketball players like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant is more than $10 million annually. So these athletes can afford to spend a lot of money on food, clothing, and housing. So what we have to do is to make this causal type analysis, we have to really prove this idea here. I don't think that you've really done this. So what I'm trying to do is just show you how to create a more unified paragraph that's limited. spend a lot of money on goods, it can cause the price of these items to increase for everyone, including poor people. Items let's say their meals, clothing, the inflation, okay, I think we have it. We'll say these high salaries can also affect the society by creating a big income gap between poor people and rich people, which is another reason why these athletes should not be paid large amounts of money. In fact, this income gap hurts poor people economically because it causes inflation. For example, the average salary of NBA basketball players like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant is more than $10 million annually. So these athletes can afford to spend a lot of money on food, clothing, and housing. When these rich athletes and celebrities spend a lot of money on goods, it can cause the price of these items to increase for everyone, including poor people. Therefore, poor people have to spend more money on meals, clothing, and rent, mortgage due to their inflation. Causes the income gap to increase. Even more between the rich and the poor. And that's it. So I would take all of this just get rid of it. Now you see, instead of all those bigger ideas, what we tried to do here is we tried to work with one of your ideas, the income gap and inflation, and then you have to use the rest of this paragraph to only focus around that particular idea. You see what we did here? So that would be probably one of my suggestions for you, is to make sure that you, when you're writing, especially when you're making arguments, don't try to put too many big ideas into one paragraph. All right, so let's take a look at what we have here, this one paragraph one more time. Now remember, if I went through your whole essay and helped you reorganize everything, it'd probably take me over an hour, but I just wanted to work on one particular paragraph to give you an idea of the unity and the depth, what we call the progression of thought that's expected in academic writing. So again, here's your next paragraph. These high salaries can also affect the society by creating a big income gap. How about get rid of that and just say big income gaps between poor and rich people, which is another reason why these athletes should not be paid large amounts of money. In fact, this income gap hurts poor people economically because it causes inflation. Then we prove this idea. For example, the average salary of NBA basketball players like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant is more than $10 million annually, so these athletes can afford to spend a lot of money on food, clothing, and housing. When these rich athletes spend a lot of money, it can cause the price of these items to increase for everyone, including poor people. Therefore, poor people have to spend more money on their meals, clothing, and rent mortgages due to the inflation. This causes the income gap to increase even more between the rich and the poor. Then maybe say, being hurt due to these high salaries that athletes So now we have more of a clear purpose and more of an argument in here. All right, let's take a look at one of your paragraphs just in terms of your word choice, sentence structure, and so on. You said at the end, we don't say that. We'll say in the end, the unnecessary amount of salaries that, I'm going to give you a better word here. Let's say earned. Let's say earned. The unnecessary amount of salaries earned by these people should be, when you say should be, this forces you to use the past participle here because it is passive voice. Should be rethought. If this problem is still, you have without concern, I'm going to say unresolved. If this problem is still unresolved, don't need to really say this, just say the economic problem will remain. I don't think you need to say any of that, actually. A little bit wordy here. So if this problem is still unresolved, the economic problem will increase the unfairness between normal people and the superstar people. Probably put this, entertainers, entertainment, and sports are fun. Entertainment and sports are fun. And hobbies for people either by watching or practicing it. Maybe say fans can entertainment and sports are fun in that fans can either watch or practice, so it's necessary to think about returning them to their original purpose, other than a lot of grammar problems here, other than using them for business promotions. You see what I'm saying? This is just one paragraph. If I went through every paragraph, I would be making a lot of changes here. Okay, so let's read it one more time. In the end, the unnecessary amount of salaries earned by these people should be rethought. Don't even have to say about this issue, because when you say the amount of salaries earned, that is the issue. No need to refer to it at the end. So in the end, the unnecessary amount of salaries earned by these people should be rethought. If this problem is still unresolved, the economic problem will increase the unfairness between normal, probably don't even have to say this, between normal and superstar people. Entertainment and sports are fun in that fans can either watch or practice, so it's necessary to think about returning them to their original purpose other than using them for business promotions. Maybe repeat this here. So it's necessary to think about returning sports to the original purpose other than using them for business promotions. All right, so what do we got here? I think I gave you a 3.5 out of 5, 22 points out of 30. So let's revisit again the rubrics. Now I think you see what I'm saying about using somewhat developed explanations. You probably need to focus more with a particular paragraph around a specific thing, not several big ideas, but just one, and then spend time developing that point. As I also showed you in the last paragraph, you sometimes have problems with sentence formation and word choice. In fact, I'd like to see you go to, if you go to the grammar area of my course, go to the lessons. One's called Lesson 26. It's called Sentence Variety. I think you should review that lesson, and then also review the grammar lessons on using gerunds and infinitives. I can't remember the name of the lesson, but if you go to the grammar part of my course, you can find it, and that would definitely help you more with your writing. Alrighty, so I know that your goals are, you got some pretty big goals, so you're looking for 26 and 24 on the speaking and the writing sections of the exam. Your writing score, it's going to be a while for you to reach that goal. So one of my suggestions, use English as much as you can, especially reading. Read a lot of magazines, newspapers, and books, and that does have a very positive impact on helping you to improve your writing proficiency.